Americans. There are all kinds of behavioral health databases. They've been stashing fake things with the families at triages, with the security sides, and with the mental health care sides and the lawyer sides of the medical of the they have of the campuses, including medical and fire campuses. They have been running them to hide the progressions with the differences of guilt, including the branches of government and the intelligence tied to them. The both sides of cases and lawyers increasingly at the same time they self-value the same sequence shifts, the same relative delusions too, and the same criminally foreign influence, spectrum, nature, quality aspects of nature, and relativity to those natures of collusions originally instilled, where also others being and has been communicated for James Madison and for the founders behind him and his plan. Then they communicated. And other is communicated about the extortion of everyone, including George Washington, who agreed to help them and to use that plan, which is to force everyone else to be founders too. And Native Americans are already founders, and the three natures of founders. One's just because nature shows every Native American's founder. They played a role with being three natures of our founders. Then there are Native Americans grouped that agreed to help our founders. We know this because of President slash Chief. We also know this because it was the Constitution unabridged and valuing why and how we have needs. We have rights that are too numerous to have to list them, let alone local collusions regarding. We don't even have witch trials treated properly as a subject matter because of the nature of a whole bunch of people at Harvard Hospital's Institute of Living have roles with people that went to the campuses I went with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic, including federal, including intermilitary, foreign and domestic, criminally foreign influence, tactical collusions, raw collusions here with the news at the same time. So you can't get anything on paper. They won't really get on paper. Offensively, the police forms, people involved with forensics locations, involved with digital crimes with a Joshua Julian, a whole bunch of ways directly and indirectly involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, a whole bunch of judges involved with predicate acts with Joshua Julian, syntactical ones, fact-cheating nature ones, also with the principal child abuser. He was on the campus of the principal child abuser roles with that. He was on the Facebook page of the principal child abuser with the court's family members involved with that, involving their kids with predicate acts with the courts while being and having been used remotely by the foreign, the hyper foreign, not just by the foreign, the federal, the differences. These are people out of the state of Connecticut corrections offices and judicial branch offices who have roles with predicate acts with facts, methods, plural. Also has roles with that singular method that uses and used them remotely since they were kids. Self-value roles with that. They're also lying about what they think about people, what people think over the internet, or what they think about in cases. Because again, all sides of criminal and civil cases in the courts themselves, in the police forms, in their sources, and their ties to all kinds of natures of politicians, all natures of politicians. Originally, still, that was his assigned, like the value of voting was his assigned values it doesn't have. We still have the Constitution abridged. And that it's manifest self-value roles with it because of how everyone was used remotely. You guys are used remotely as fact-cheating nature when you blame other things, others ourselves, for things that the communications of our founders. And that reality itself tells us to blame on a human fact-cheating nature breaching method that which caused and was the value the slavery was value as. This is before our founders were born. And this is regarding slavery. They had Irish slaves before, Jewish slaves. This is not about color. It's about the breaching methods, assignment of color, reassignment of color. Because nature communicates with black people as whites of eyes. And only punk styles are allowed to be heard speaking for these subjects. Anyone who brings up the whites of eyes, black pupils properly, they are sensed, even if they're a majority of people, even if they're everyone that is adapted to. Any grouping of countries that tries to counter the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that have been caused by this and are being caused by it, they are syntaxed as shock and awe. You need to self-value. In other words, being and having been used remotely as syntax nature, as locations, areas, and states. Once that you entertain that, even if you're all the groupings of country, even everyone all agrees together, you entertain how actually the suburbs are manifest. Nature's gonna demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Then there are the suburban / urban. And then there is straight up urban, straight up influenced by the breaching method that designed with internationally monitored conversations that were forced, multi-front roles with overt criminal enterprises and with terrorists, and remote uses of the differences of the countries that were involved with more than 13 colonies before America's founders were even born in America. With slavery sickly distinctly too, but also sickly non-distinctly. It is also recorded how that was left out and is maintained left out, even though it's valued to everyone, to discern how everyone was and is sickly non-distinctly victims of the same method. See, everyone, we don't have to blame to come up with we have to be led by principles themselves. And with the exception, there are all kind of people with all kind of excuses, because there is increasingly a hyper foreign name involved. But everywhere that's discernible, it is exploited where and how we have types of experts like with psychiatry and behavior. Whiting forensics is involved with state police, families interstate, increasingly involved planting evidences with retired police chiefs and people tied to their intimate to family, and police phones families with the same house /S, involved with all kinds of natures of predicate acts with the police and even the FBI, involved with wire crimes, worse than criminal incompetence and tactical delusions that are relative. That's why they won't get on paper. They won't identify themselves legitimately with the courts that are involved with them with some black KKK, Confederate flag theme, Latino theme, Italian theme, all kinds of stacking, all kinds of criminally foreign influence uses of all natures of investigations and of crime scenes, including body dumping spots. That increasingly there are uses of them increasingly that came up again. Their time use / estimate that can be used to discern the hyper evidential. See, it's forgiveness. We have to be led by the principles, like how the interbranch have been switching names with the FBI, the federal, and other agencies are involved. There are proofs that they don't have the integrity to be. In other words, they reported that 4 officers committed suicide right in a short time. Doesn't make sense. And these are people involved with torture and extortion before they put the 9/11 TAC roll self-value and went since to hide it. I didn't know about it. It was connected to that. I knew people. I didn't know they were the extent. I didn't know they worked at Harvard Hospital, but I found out a whole bunch of people at Harvard Hospital, directly and indirectly, have been covering up. Have been putting predicate acts roles, acting tied to predicate acts stacked into databases at every campus I went to and next to them. And people's at corners of the streets, they make fake exceptions. People I don't know at all, like the Joshua Julian, involved with on YouTube and with Facebook, involved with the FBI and with the CIA. And we could observe how other agencies, but the only reason we have to is because they won't follow mandated law, including Paul Kelly is involved with the Mark Violet and a whole bunch of people at Harvard Hospital who have been planting evidences on off Trinity College and on off Central Connecticut State University, also with the Joshua Julian and the Joshua Stryker. and a Joshua Schumack with Weathersfield Police with their Facebook page, involved with a digital upskirt nature principle and other ones years ago. Also, a Justin Kovinskis and a Mark Violet have roles with a Rick Cianfaglione with some judges and prosecutors, personally and professionally, with a whole bunch of people at medical, including foreign and domestic military and medical, that are involved with predicate acts on my street in my area too. All kinds of natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders. They fish for any little thing to cover up, and they've been planting things too. They've been putting also their descriptions of what happened at instances, hiding what's actually there, including with the fire departments and their roles with Hartford Hospital too, and a whole bunch of different countries, people from Ukraine and Russia. These are things being leaked, communicated by the Weathersfield Police, forging and switching names, refusing to get on paper one name in sequence. Again, they have retired police chiefs, plural, at least two, involved with 80 Carriage Hill Drive with a Ray Colol, also on social media, on Facebook and YouTube roles with the Joshua Julian, on the Facebook page of the Principal Upskirt Nature. A Bob Chase with Whiting Forensics also confessed a Phil Colol was involved with that, who is also reportedly the cousin of a Ray Colol. And I only saw him one time outside of a car. I'm pretty sure I saw him one time in a car. One time, I wasn't sure each time it was him. But I saw him one time driving by in a bike. I had no words with him. Phil Colol. He's involved with violence on my street, and people involved with poison and identity theft, fraud, slanders, with the police that won't identify themselves, and Whiting Forensics and police forms, but multiple police departments, regular police departments, involved with ones with the name Colol. There are people that used to live in my area named D. Simone and O'Brien. Also, increasingly, people tied to them involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, falsified police reports rolled. In fact, identity theft, fraud, slanders with police reports are used to attach fake transcripts and fake communications that never were at all, to pretend people knew officers when they were kids and adults when they were kids when they weren't at all. They don't know them at all, including ones with badges who are doctors of psychiatry. In fact, they have tactically criminally foreign influence and simultaneously tactically delusions wrought readings of American history and of principles. So we're going to have to pay attention to where and how that psychiatry, under the guise of medicine and capability, they've been involved with all kinds of natures of organized crime. No one's been looking into their databases. They have a whole bunch of wire and mail crime acts and methods, and they should fear God for lying about why and how. They read statutes that give them the right to lie, and they made exceptions. They hide about how they and their motivation screening too. A whole bunch of different countries involved with these people, like people from Korea, increasingly involved with the ones from other areas who planted evidence on my predicate acts rules on my street, and with their educators. And I didn't even have classes with them. That's why increasingly they're bringing the schools into conversations about things that happen at crime scenes, because there are crime methods by that. Then when people go back and speak about it and they're leaving, and they're not supposed to be doing that. All exception nature that appear to be a demonstration of other comes with a demonstration of the same thing. Increasingly, the family members of security guards have roles, and people, their family members associated on off town line drive locations and town lines locations in general. They have roles on all the state corrections office, on all the state judicial branch offices, and the roads and routes and other natures of conjunctions to them, and ones that are drawing themselves. But because it's also the differences of guilt, they all need to have blamed on other things, others or themselves, rather than what's true. Because what's true is they were and are being and have been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. So we have interbranch that are refusing to identify themselves legitimately. Increasingly, they can't get on paper because they know 3 times. In other words, 3 times distinct, 2 times they made up things to hide what I caught them the first time when I forced people to call the police. Then they faked it. Why? Then the second time I asked them, and she nicely called the police, and they faked it and pretended it was like the first time. and they won't identify themselves. So there are a whole bunch of, there's a Judge Killian involved with sequence shifts with the other judges, and the ones involved with sexual and medical crimes with kids in my area through time. Fake ties to them, like a Leahy family and a Lombardo family, involved with identity theft, frauds, and slanders with people that live near me. I don't have nothing. I never had a word of conversation with a Joe Lombardo. He's planting evidences per the people involved with the police and the courts intercities. These are people also with the houses and businesses next to Central Connecticut State, next to Harvard Hospital, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involved with the intelligence near me, like the ones with 80 Carroll Drive with the name Kalal, involved with the Phil Kalal with the Bob Chase, and other people I don't know the names of, involved with the Smith family and the police phones of the families, and the roles with the Afghan leaders and kids through time. For God, with these ones with the Koreans, Italian, the difference is right. These are some KKK black theme, Confederate flag theme, with with more than two judges, but two women judges, even black and white female judges, involved with some black KKK, Confederate flag theme, Latino theme, etc. Planting evidence is at next to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, increasingly with people that have planted evidence on all sides of my house and made confessions tied to it. In other words, they don't even know the extent of it. That's why it's important to follow mandated law, not change and fake what people say when they're speaking about Child Abuses Act. Whiting Forensics has rules changing and faking digital evidences with Wethersfield Police, involved with all kinds of abuses of each age or fact-sheeping nature. At the same time, these were roles with child abusers leaders years apart, leaders of kids years apart, first force. These are roles with the first force part and time use /S of those same names and people associated with them. Bunch of fakes, many ways. That's why you guys can't even appreciate black people as whites of eyes. You guys are mentally sick. You guys are mentally ill. You have your sports leaders and celebrities and act with the actors acting fake passions, emotions, changing and faking what others say and communicate. Self-valuing roles with the predicate acts with facts and databases that enable this to be gotten away with. Fear God. Don't hide and plot. Get me off the fake communications and the fake locations and communications with WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News. They put me in fake conversations with themselves and with others about the World Trade Center attack. They have rules with federal and state and foreign and domestic military involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. I don't even know all their names. Increasingly, people with Newington, Connecticut involved. I don't even know like the Marine's name. He's on Facebook. A whole bunch of things were confirmed and demonstrated to me, confessed and confirmed on Facebook. And then they took my page because they're hiding what's actually recorded, like how on off the state judicial branch offices, on off the state corrections offices. They have roles with names next to body dumping spots. Increasingly involved with them with other natures of organized crimes and predicate acts with facts. Fear God, wire crime acts and methods, mail crime acts and methods, and collusion /S with names all along roads and routes, just repeating fake things and the difference of it sometimes making them up themselves. Fear God. People on Route 3 will confess this, the same ones for defending other, pretending other, and the ones that just mentioned me when they were driving by.